It is Saturday, the 2nd of November, 2024. My name is Pigeon Rose, and this is my song of the day. We're continuing our spooky week with another spooky song that I'm pretty sure I discovered just kind of, not randomly, but Spotify makes all these things to recommend you music, and I mostly don't pay attention to them. But at one point I did, and I discovered this song. It's called The Woods, and it's by San Fermin. Now, I know nothing about San Fermin except for what I just read in their Wikipedia moments ago, which is that they're an American indie rock collective led by Brooklyn-based composer and songwriter Ellis Ludwig Leon. Now, this song, The Woods, is the opener of their second album, Jackrabbit, from 2015. And I think it's a really interesting song to open an album with, so I really should listen to the rest of their stuff. But I've also heard people say that they wish more of their music sounded like this, so I might be disappointed. Anyway, the song itself tells a creepy narrative story, and that's why we're talking about it today, and I really like it story-wise, musically, vocally, so we're going to listen to it now and then come back in a few minutes and talk about it. I love how it's a song that builds, but it gets so intense so quickly. And right from the start, it gets you off balance because it starts with the dun, dun, dun on the piano. And then, I don't know what instrument it is. It's probably the baritone sax because they love using that. But it's like a little sound, almost sounds like a little creature, you know. I just love that as it starts in the strings and everything, and then it gets right into the narrative. I'll talk about the music before I talk about the lyrics. Like I said, I love the way it builds. I love songs that do like loud music for a few seconds, and then all the music fades away as the vocals come back in, and then the music kicks off again and then disappears as the vocals come in, and so on. And so you get that in this song. I'll talk about it when it comes up, but I love just the combination of instruments. And also, I will always have time for a song with a baritone sax solo. So good. Kind of gives me Moon Hooch energy in a way, but that's a story for another time. Ooh, should I talk about Moon Hooch on here? I probably wouldn't have much to say. Go look up Moon Hooch. They're great. They play saxophones with traffic cones in them and shit. They're great. Anyway, so the story goes, we went, the two of us, into the woods behind the little school. Two went in and one came home. We didn't go in there alone. Your eyes were lovely as you danced with centipedes and little ants. We built a fort of lovers' teeth and some of mother's sheets. I was a boy and I was good, but there are witches in these woods. So it's telling the story of these two kids who go into the spooky woods together, and it kind of wraps it up in references to fairy tales and stuff like that, and some literary references as well. And I just love how it's, you know, immediately, as well as with the music, but also in the lyrics, unsettling with, you know, we went, the two of us, into the woods behind the little school. Just already sounds like something sinister is going on. Two went in and one came home. Well, you immediately know something bad happened. We didn't go in there alone. You know, they're not talking about getting adult supervision. They're talking about, like, there is stuff in the woods that is out to get us. And then, your eyes were lovely as you danced with centipedes and little ants is a very sweet bit, actually, but also bringing up bugs. I mean, some people find bugs upsetting in their own way, so it also kind of feeds into that imagery. And then, we built a fort of lovers' teeth and some of mother's sheets is a really interesting thing to say. I'm not entirely sure what it's supposed to mean. Someone on Genius says that it's saying the fort is built out of branches because they would be the teeth of the trees, but I don't know how they're getting that from lovers' teeth. Anyway, and some of mother's sheets also calls to mind. I mean, a kid, but using that specific phrasing, again, feels like a fairy tale. And the chorus line being, I was a boy and I was good, but there are witches in these woods. Again, very fairy tale-like, talking about, like, the wicked witch that lives in the woods, very Hansel and Gretel sort of thing, you know? But I also just love that line, because I was a boy and I was good is so innocent, and then, but there are witches in these woods, and the pause before the music picks up again. It's just like, oh dear. They followed us into the trees, wearing crowns of twigs and leaves. You and I were in the mud, paint ourselves with spider's blood. Your eyes are lovely, darkened dancer, pulling legs off salamanders. Little creature you unspun, the skin and bones and brains and blood, while witches they surrounded us. I was a boy and I was good, but there are witches in these woods. So, you know, it just continues this horror story. They followed us into the trees, wearing crowns of twigs and leaves. Gives this kind of idea of, like, creatures that are part creature, part woods. You know, they have crowns of twigs and leaves. It feels like they are part of the forest. You know, it feels like the woods are sentient. You and I were in the mud, paint ourselves with spider's blood. Immediately just like sinister imagery from the kids as well. Painting themselves with spider's blood is such an interesting thing to say. Your eyes were lovely, darkened dancer. Kind of implies to me like possession, maybe a ritual happening. I don't know, just the fact that he keeps commenting on her dark eyes being lovely makes it sound like she's possessed to me. I don't know what it is about that. And then pulling legs off salamanders, just a cruel thing to do. Little creature you unspun, the skin and bones and brains and blood. Just like talking about cruelly killing a salamander for no reason, you know? And then while witches, they surrounded us, reminding you of what's going on. And then I was a boy and I was good, but there are witches in these woods. Then we get that sick-ass baritone sax solo. And then the nights are lovely, dark and deep, but I'll appear when you're asleep. You'll wake up with a sudden hurt, mouth and nose all full of dirt. We went the two of us into the woods behind the little school. Yeah, I'm still buried in the mud, skin and bones and brains and blood. It's interesting here that there's actually something that reminds me of a short story that I wrote, but I didn't think of this song at all when I wrote it, which is really interesting because I definitely knew this song at that point. But anyway, that's besides the point. So yeah, the nights are lovely, dark and deep kind of feels like it's calling back to Your Eyes Are Lovely, Dark and Dancer, but also it's a reference to the Robert Frost poem Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. So in that poem, it famously ends with, the woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Very famous ending of a poem. And here it goes, the nights are lovely, dark and deep, but I'll appear when you're asleep. You'll wake up with a sudden hurt, mouth and nose all full of dirt. So he's saying here that the narrator was killed in the woods by the witches, and the girl escaped, and then he says, you know, you won't be able to sleep because you'll see me. You'll see my corpse in the forest in your dreams. I'll appear when you're asleep. You'll wake up with a sudden hurt, the survivor's guilt, right? Mouth and nose all full of dirt. We went the two of us into the woods behind the little school. Yeah, I'm still buried in the mud, skin and bones and brains and blood. So echoing the start of the song, but then cutting ahead to the fact that they're dead and still buried. Skin and bones and brains and blood. And then you get the sort of sound to end the song. Just a really interesting story with some really cool imagery, some cool references as well, and some great, really wild, contrasting music. I honestly thought I would talk about this one longer, but I haven't actually been recording for that long, and I don't have much else to say. I did actually try to write a short story inspired by this song, by the way. I've done that a few times where I've tried to like take a narrative song and put it in prose form, and it's just never as good as the original song is because it just doesn't work as well. I don't know, but I always do think of that when I think of this song. But that refrain gets stuck in my head so much, just the I was a boy and I was good, but there are witches in these woods. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say. Just a good, spooky, weird song. And it has a baritone sax solo, so I can't really complain. Thank you so much for listening. Please hit like, hit subscribe, leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think. Tell other people about this show. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you tomorrow. You and I were in the mud,